Sabina Spielrein, a woman grappling with mental instability and frequent anger, is admitted to Bergholzli Psychiatric Hospital in Zurich, Switzerland in 1904. Diagnosed with hysteria, she comes under the care of Dr. Carl Jung. During their initial interaction, Jung observes her difficulty in answering questions, marked by stammering. The next day, while taking a walk in the woods, Jung discovers Sabina's remarkable ability to anticipate people's words before they speak. Intrigued by this phenomenon, Jung decides to delve deeper into her condition and explore the potential of her gift. Sabina, who claims to have an inner angel that communicates with her in German and helps her predict events, impresses Dr. Carl with her potential for a medical career. Despite an initial misunderstanding that angers Sabina, Dr. Carl discovers her true qualifications as a well-educated woman with a medical degree. Recognizing her intelligence and energy, he offers her the chance to assist him in his experiments, which she eagerly accepts. Meanwhile, Dr. Carl's wife, Emma, has recently given birth to a lovely baby girl, bringing joy to their family. Carl's visit to the delivery ward is overshadowed by his wife's disappointment in giving birth to a female child, leading him to console her and dismiss her irrational thoughts. Meanwhile, Carl's therapy sessions with Sabina uncover the root of her condition, tracing it back to the humiliation she endured from her abusive father, who punished her physically and forced her to kiss his hands, inadvertently arousing her and causing her to seek out further humiliation. Realizing the significance of this revelation, Carl arranges a meeting with the renowned doctor Sigmund Freud to discuss their patients and collaborate on the most effective treatment approaches. As the doctors engage in a conversation, they exchange their perspectives and engage in mutual analysis. The lengthy and uninterrupted 13-hour discussion between the boys leaves them unfatigued, prompting them to plan another meeting soon. Carl encounters Sabina and shares his conversation with Dr. Freud, leading to the discovery of their mutual interests and a growing closeness between them. Dr. Freud's urgent business trip necessitates his departure, prompting him to entrust Carl with the care of a patient named Dr. Otto Gross. In a letter, Dr. Freud provides Carl, a psychoanalyst known for his brilliance and womanizing tendencies, with detailed information about Otto, a peculiar individual who resorts to biting when angered. Despite the unusual request, Carl agrees to help Otto for the sake of their friendship. Carl attends a therapy session with Otto, who boasts about his mistresses and advises Carl to have extramarital affairs, claiming it keeps a person healthy. The next day, Sabina assists Carl in his research and shows signs of recovery from her mental condition. Despite Otto's words, Carl manages to control his impulses and maintain a professional relationship with Sabina. During another therapy session, Otto asks Carl if he has ever had intimate relationships with his patients, and Carl responds negatively, posing the same question to Otto. Otto reveals that he manipulates his patients into thinking that their desire to not have intercourse with him is an illness. He uses this technique on all the women he meets, and it works almost every time. Otto brags about having sexual encounters with over 100 women. The following day, Carl engages in a conversation about intercourse with Sabina at a park, where she surprisingly discloses her lack of sexual experience, suggesting that this may be a contributing factor to her feelings of depression and anxiety. Hence, she would like to gain such an experience right away. When the doctor hesitates, Sabina takes the initiative and kisses him unexpectedly. She then invites Carl to her place later that evening so that they can have passionate intercourse. Later, during the therapy session, Otto urges Carl to give in and perform erotic acts on Sabina. Since she wants it, he should give it to her. Despite his initial determination to stay faithful to his wife and avoid the taboo of getting involved with a patient, Carl's resolve gradually weakens as Otto persistently recounts his romantic escapades. Eventually, Carl succumbs to his desires when Otto engages in an intimate act with a worker in the open field, unable to control his urges any longer. Carl and Sabina's passionate affair intensifies as they indulge in increasingly daring acts, including bondage and spanking. Emma, unaware of her husband's infidelity, surprises Carl with a boat adorned with red sails, fulfilling his long-cherished desire. She holds him in the highest regard, considering him the epitome of a man, and deserving of all his wishes. Witnessing his wife's unwavering love and trust, Carl grapples with the guilt of his betrayal and the realization that he may be jeopardizing his marriage for fleeting moments of pleasure. Realizing his betrayal, Carl visits Sabina to end their affair, but she convinces him to stay, asking him to punish her like her father did. Meanwhile, Dr. Freud returns from his trip and resumes discussions with Carl about their theories, often clashing and straining their friendship. During an intense debate, Freud confronts Carl with a rumor that he is having an affair with one of his patients. Carl, a doctor, has been having a secret affair with his patient, Sabina. However, he decides to end the relationship, leaving Sabina heartbroken. Sabina, enraged, accuses Carl of informing her mother about their affair and calls him a betrayer. Carl reveals that her mother already knew about the relationship due to an anonymous letter. Sabina, further infuriated, grabs a knife and cuts Carl's face before leaving. Sabina writes a letter to Dr. Freud, requesting a meeting to discuss the affair, but Carl denies any involvement and claims Sabina is spreading false rumors to ruin his life. Despite their close friendship, Dr. Freud writes to Carl to inquire about the truth of the matter. Upon receiving Sabina's letter, Freud, occupied with work, suggests they resolve their issues without his involvement. Sabina, distraught, confronts Carl at the hospital, discovering his imminent departure to the US for a conference. Infuriated by his deceit, she demands a confessional letter to Freud, threatening to damage his reputation. Compelled by her persistence, Carl complies and sends a revealing letter to Freud. Despite feeling betrayed, Freud remains composed and apologizes to Sabina, expressing admiration for her conflict resolution approach. Years later, Sabina visits Carl in Switzerland to collaborate on her dissertation, rekindling memories of their passionate encounters in various locations. They decide to add another intimate moment to their shared history. Sabina decides to leave Zurich for Vienna after graduating, despite Carl's emotional plea for her to stay. 2 years later, Sabina, now a qualified psychiatrist, meets with Freud in Vienna and expresses her support for him, while also emphasizing the importance of coexistence between Freud and Carl for the advancement of psychoanalysis. However, Freud shows no interest in reconciling with Carl, and their estrangement has grown to the point where they avoid seeing each other. A year later, Sabina visits Emma, now married to a Russian doctor and expecting a baby girl. During their conversation, Emma reveals Carl's deteriorating mental state since his break with Freud and asks Sabina to talk to him. In contrast to Sabina's bustling life, Carl is depicted as a reclusive figure, quietly sitting by a tranquil river. His detachment from his research work has rendered him unproductive, and he confides in Sabina about the apocalyptic dreams that haunt his sleep. Sabina, finding their conversation tedious, abruptly changes the subject and announces her impending departure to Russia with her husband. Curious about Carl's personal life, she inquires about his new mistress, Tony, who bears a striking resemblance to Sabina herself. Carl admits that Tony reminds him of the cherished moments they shared, acknowledging that his enduring love for Sabina has profoundly influenced his personal growth. Despite his feelings, Carl recognizes the futility of altering their circumstances, and as Sabina departs on a carriage, he remains alone with his unrequited emotions. The movie concludes by revealing the fates of the four analysts. Tragically, Otto succumbed to starvation in Berlin during 1920. Freud, compelled to leave Vienna due to Nazi persecution, passed away from cancer in London in 1939. Sabina, after training numerous analysts in the Soviet Union, met a devastating end alongside her two daughters, as they were executed by the Nazis in 1942. Meanwhile, Carl managed to overcome a nervous breakdown and went on to gain worldwide recognition as an exceptional psychologist before his passing in 1961. Here is the end. Subscribe for more movies like this. Thank you for watching.